Hello and welcome to the Two Fat Brokers podcast. I'm Ben from Abu Dhabi.
I am Barney from Dubai.
And today we're going to be talking about tips for investors in the current market. So the current market's going through quite a bit of upheaval and turmoil. We've got prices up, we've got prices down, we've got interest rates, we've got inflation, we've got the spectre of a global recession. So when there's blood in the streets, what's it say?
Let's eat.
Make money. Paved with gold, maybe. So we're just going to go through a couple of tips for people specifically looking for investment. It's not really for end users. You might find this useful in a market like we're in now. So a good one that I always like is always pay very close attention to service charges, because some service charges are absolutely just destroy your returns on investment.
We have some buildings in Dubai, just to surprise you, I bet you probably don't even know this, 100 dirhams a square foot in some buildings in Dubai. Service departments are typically astronomical, but a lot of people buy them as investments. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so I mean, for capital appreciation, maybe that makes sense. But if you're worried about capital appreciation and you want to lock in good net returns, really pay attention to that, because typically the best investment class tends to be smaller townhouses and villas, because townhouses and villas have lower service charges. So if you can get a similar kind of return from those kind of things, look out and invest in
But
those.
equally, townhouses do tend to have more running costs.
For the tenant though, so if you're just putting those...
So how does it work with the tenant in Dubai? Typically a clause that is inserted into the contract is anything 500 dirhams and below is to the tenant, and anything 500 dirhams maintenance.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, probably will have more maintenance issues, but take that into account. But as long as it's a relatively new build, shouldn't be too much that can go wrong with it.
If your compressor goes in your AC, it can be 1,000 dirhams, but then you've got 6 ACs or 4 ACs.
Don't let them all go at once.
Okay. Sage advice. Yeah. Stitching time saves 9.
Yeah. Yeah, so there, and that's also another interesting point about older build units in, is it the greens?
This is the greens.
Yeah, older build units. The returns might look good on the face, but you have to take into account, what are the maintenance costs like, and if it's been tenanted for its whole existence. Tenants don't take very good care of stuff. If you're going to buy something that's been owner occupied, you've probably got a better chance that it's been looked after.
Okay, so what else other than service fees?
Well, so something we were talking about on a previous podcast, should you buy a large unit in a useless area, or a small unit in a lower area, or a smaller unit in a more kind of upper class location? You were of the opinion a smaller unit in a better location, because the quality of the tenants that you get is better, possibly the quality of maintenance is better, even if your return on investment is probably slightly less, because it just tends to be more expensive units for whatever reason give a lower return on investment than cheaper units, probably because cheaper units, they take more effort to find tenants don't look after them as well, you have higher turnover.
But the cheaper units and the smaller units, so if you ever go to a launch in Dubai, and I'm guessing it's probably the same as Abu Dhabi, if you go to a launch and you can get your hands on a studio or a 1-bedroom, you're a very lucky human being, because most of the time those units are ring fenced for their long-term investors, shall we say, the individuals who have large portfolios with developers. They literally get ring fenced. They get pushed to one side and sold before even launch. So surely, by that rationale, the smaller units are the better return.
Well, I mean, I think I say unsophisticated, but I think on the face of it, those studios can look great. Low ticket price, you're going to get a better return on investment. But we've got a property management arm, and what we find is they are a nightmare to manage. There's a reason why you get a better investment with them, is because your tenants are worse, they're more likely to default, you have a higher turnover of tenant, they don't treat the place nearly as well. I would, even 1 beds are a bit like that. If I was an investor, I'd be looking more at 2 beds, to be honest. As a starting point, because
there's a 2-bed. Is it a family or just a more successful young professional?
Yeah, and I think they're the kind of people, because families can also mess stuff up. I mean, families stay longer for sure, but if you can get that young professional, much better than a studio where you could, some guy might move 10 of his mates in. But they're the attractive ones. And when you see property adverts, like, online anywhere, it's always like starting from 500,000 dirhams, and that's like the cheapest, wall view studio that you can get. And that gets people in with their checkbooks. Oh, that one's gone. Okay, like, what's your next one? But I think, I think if I was an investor, I'd stay well clear of studios. I think one bed's been my starting point, just because of how difficult that is.
But then again, that goes back to location, because if you've got a studio in, an Emaar development in the marina in Dubai, you're still going to have a certain quality of tenant. Whereas, if you've got a studio in International City, which is a lot further out, a lot lower price point, that's, I think, the kind of individual you're going to get more trouble with. Whereas if you go into the marina or Business Bay or downtown, you're not going to be able to rent a studio for less than 80,000, and then 80,000. And that kind of tenant isn't going to cause you less problems, I would imagine.
Yeah, but I think the whole profile of a studio is it's a temporary accommodation for someone, right? They're going to be there for 1 or 2 years. They're going to move out. You're going to get that month, loss of rent as you change tenants. So you're just going to have a bit of a higher turnover, and a month's rent is 8% of your annual income. So, but again, it's something to take into account. When you're thinking about an investment, where should you be putting your funds? And I would say don't just straight away see the cheapest unit you can get and put it in there.
What else should they be looking at? So that's service fees, maintenance.
Well, so the very interesting category, and I presume you have this in Dubai as well, is 2+ maids. So 2+ maids is your young family home. A 2-bed, you probably aren't going to get, given that the way most people look after children is with a maid these days, a 2-bed, as soon as you have kids, you're going to move out into a 3-bed or 2+ maids. A 2+ maids, however, fits a young professional. They use it as a storage room, and then when they have children, maybe 1, maybe 2, they can have a maid and kind of stay in there. So to be honest, I think that's
the sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot.
And what typical return on investment do you think you should be getting on something like that?
You should be getting 7% gross and at least 6.5% net, generally speaking, I would say.
There's a lot of institutional investors in Dubai that would not even look at that 6.5%.
Really?
Net. No.
Well, I think that's crazy, and for property, particularly crazy, because you can leverage it. Even your real estate funds can leverage up to 50%. I mean, we're not in a massively low interest rate environment now, but when we were, I mean, that translates into 12-13% return on investment.
Which nobody would be turning their nose up now.
But I think we're part of the Bitcoin generation, right? Where you're like, what, 6% a year? That's ridiculous.
Or what, 300?
Get out of bed for that, yeah. I want to 10x this baby like tomorrow. But I think most proper institutional investors who are managing, family money or pensions or that kind of thing, 6% is absolutely lovely.
Secure, long term, it's a good move.
And then property doesn't go to zero, so it's not, investments in bonds or mutual funds or anything like that, which might
difficult to get out of, though, isn't it? That's the whole thing. Why people do tend to those who don't like real estate simply don't like real estate because it's a very difficult exit. Not very difficult, but it can be a difficult exit.
It's certainly more illiquid than most stuff, but in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, you can sell something in 2 months. Less even. As long as you price it right to get a buyer, you can exit very, very quickly.
True. Very true. All right. He's been Ben. I've been Barney. He's been from Abu Dhabi. I've been from Dubai. We've been 2 fat brokers. We will continue to be 2 fat brokers.
Thanks for coming to the gym. Yeah.
Right now. That's where I'm going right now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.